We dedicate this episode of Did You Hear to staff picks. Find out what our librarians are recommending. You can find staff picks at jocolibrary.org/we-recommend. Today, Dave Carson, Brian Vole, and Michelle Holden host the Minister of Information and his partner in art, Sarah Starr, in our What's Happening segment. Spoiler alert, they're related. They discuss their exhibition and programs based on the topic of food insecurity. Then, Matt Fuegan joins Brian and Dave to talk about music that we recommend.
Hello. For every Did You Hear episode, we try to have two segments. Later, we'll talk about what we recommend, but first, we like to talk about what's happening. A lot of times, those are programs and events here in the library, but today, we're talking about exhibitions.
Hello, this is Brian Vole. I am the local arts librarian with the Johnson County Library. I've been with the library for about 10 years.
I'm MOI, also known as the Minister of Information, and I'm one half of the artist duo Father-Daughter Confessional.
I am Sarah Starr, and I am the other half, the daughter half, of Father-Daughter Confessional.
And I'm Michelle. I work here at the library, and I work with Brian.
Excellent. Well, let's get right into some questions about your art. I guess it's an installation here at the Johnson County in connection to the food insecurity theme that we've got for this spring. So could you tell us a little bit about your free lunch project and what went into the thought process behind this particular art project?
So, Free Lunch is a project that looks at issues related to food insecurity from a variety of different issues. So, one of the things that we have here at the Central Resource Branch is a vision board that shares some of the research that went into the project. So, we work together as a team. We sort of have this intergenerational take looking at various social issues. So the work is a combination of visual elements and then engagements with the public. So we do a combination of both of those as part of this project.
So tell us a little bit about what that looks like. So we have a counter, like a food serving counter, right? What would be the name for that? I know it's got a sneeze guard on it.
It does have a sneeze guard. Stainless steel table with a sneeze guard that looks like maybe a smaller version of what you might see in a school lunch line.
Okay.
And that table is what we use actually in our events. So we have 3 events where that table is filled with lunches, and you spin a wheel and you get lunch served from behind the sneeze guard.
And you also learn something. The idea behind the spinning the wheel is to obtain a free lunch, but also to learn something about some of the factors that relate to issues related to free lunches, factors that talk about the history of free lunch programs, how many free lunches are served, both in Kansas and in the United States, who gets free lunches, factors associated with that. So various things related to that we uncovered as part of our research project.
We looked a lot at food insecurity in Johnson County, but also in Kansas, in Missouri, the breadbasket, and throughout the United States. So there's a lot of information that is just looking at what does food insecurity look like to everyone. So not just Johnson Countyans, but what does food insecurity look like to people in the United States? So you'll see a lot of that.
And urban versus rural examples of that, the prevalence of that in urban versus rural areas.
When you have one of these events, do you find that people are real conversational, or are they kind of hands-off? How do they approach?
Both. If they're not very conversational, then we try to be engaging. Dad's really good at that, at grabbing people in. Sometimes it takes a little bit of pulling out for people to start talking. Sometimes people just want to see the project and move on, and sometimes they want to stay and engage for an hour or so. It just depends.
So that's kind of one of the main objectives of how we construct the work. So typically people do not spend very much time looking at visual art. So what we do is we try to do things to bring them in, to engage them directly in a conversation, and then we allow them to sort of go as deep into the issue as they would like to. So our goal is to sort of capture people, have them have something interesting for them to do, talk about. In this case, share a lunch, sit down, either talk with us or talk with people around them about the issues, and then if they want to take a deeper dive into what it is we're really trying to get to, then there's an opportunity to do that. But some people, they're in a hurry. That's not really their thing. But the real goal is to sort of get people to stop, take a moment, and then think about things on a little different level. And then for the sort of visual element, there's a sort of takeaway message that's printed on a bag that you can bring back, and then sort of look at that in more depth if you'd like.
And I think we've done this theme several times in our collaborations, which is to share a meal. So food brings people together, and I think food is my love language. So I feel like it is so much easier to engage people if you can share a meal with them. So
yeah.
I think
I think the other thing that sharing meals is it gets people, so you can often talk or discuss what might be contentious issues or issues that are uncomfortable or they might not be sort of deeply aware of in a setting and in a way that's kind of more deeply meaningful to them.
I'm curious about the in conversations that you had with people at the Gardner Library. So the first free lunch program happened at the Gardner Library this past Saturday. And I'm wondering about the conversations that you had with people who encountered the food table and maybe asked questions. What kind of conversations did you have?
So we were lucky. We had several people that sat down and had lunch, and my gosh, the ages were probably ages 4 to 84. So it was a really big group of people that came in, and the conversations were all very different. We had some people that had studied the bag and the information that was on the bag and had questions about some of that information and wanted to talk about it. Some people, when we asked about food insecurity, said, absolutely, I have been touched by food insecurity. I have been food insecure, and this is really interesting. And some people had no idea what we were doing, and they were just having lunch. It was really just...
Yeah, and some people might have a sort of different understanding, like a different geographic understanding. So there was a couple that had spent some time in Denver and another city, and they were aware of food insecurity in those areas because they had gone to places that that was an issue. But I think they were less aware, but they were very welcoming of talking about that in Johnson County. So I think like Sarah said, there's a huge variety of people, and sometimes people are just kind of more interested in like the experience, I think, and what that might sort of play out for them, versus other people are more interested in sort of more at the core of what it is you're trying to talk about. So we give people the freedom to do that in any way they'd like to do it. And I think the kids, on the other hand, what was interesting is the parents often use that we spin the wheel and you learn little things about food insecurity. They often use that, I'd noticed, as a teaching moment to see if their child could read the words, because there was, like, insecurity is a word that some 4 to 5 year olds might know, and there was other words that they were learning. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like food, the library brings people together. So there was a lot of that going on. We had one family that was a pretty large family that came in, and they all spun the wheel and they all got a lunch. They thought it was really great, and then they looked at us and said, "This is our very first time at this library, and now we're wondering if it's always going to be like this." Yeah. So it's nice to be able to do something like this in a library setting because the audience is just so wide. It's so big.
That ties into a question that I wanted to ask both of you. Is I know that you've worked with the library before on previous art projects. I wonder how you see the library, what the library's role is as in the local arts or in just art. What do you see that? How do you see that intersection, libraries and art?
Well, I mean, I love libraries. That was, for me, probably my first experience with art is going to the library as a child and reading books, literature. We really like working at libraries, partly because there's an intent that people have to come to a library to learn something or explore something. So they're already somewhat receptive, and they're often surprised by the kind of work that we sort of present to them. They're not necessarily expecting that in a library setting. But libraries, they allow, in terms of art making, they allow risk. People are okay with risk at libraries. So I think they provide, they're also a community space that anybody can go to. So, all of those aspects about art making are something that we really embrace in our practice. We want work that can allow anybody to encounter it, that creates sort of a safe space in which they can engage in it in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think the playing field, I guess, is leveled, for lack of a better term, and it's fun to get out of a traditional art space and bring your art outside of those spaces. And the library is just a great place to do it. I mean, I think he said it best. It's really nice to be in the library. I really love it. It's really great.
So, sometimes with the work, we don't necessarily care if you understand it to be art. We're more interested in you just engaging in the practice of what we're putting in front of you. And I think that's the way, when as a kid I was thinking about going to the library, I didn't imagine that was art that I was engaging in, but it was. And it leaves sort of a lasting impression on you. And I think Sarah hit on a good point, is that everybody kind of comes to the library. And so I think, if you think about who comes to a gallery, that's often a very selective group of people. And we prefer to sort of broaden our scope of who might encounter the work. And libraries really give us a great opportunity to do that.
Great.
Do you ever consider yourselves more educators, or do you agree on that?
I don't know that we agree on it. I don't consider myself an educator. I consider myself a student. But I think that by me studying and me doing research and sharing that with people may learn something. But I do not feel that it is my job or my business to be teaching anything. But as I'm learning and sharing, I think that people can learn around me.
Yeah, I think for us, or at least for me, I sort of think of the research that we do as informing the work. And so, and like Sarah was saying, we learn things about it that we didn't know before. And then we try to share that with people. And I think if it's something you're interested in, I think that's kind of how we approach it. If I'm interested in this, I think other people will be interested in it. But there is some educational component to it. I mean, obviously we provide particular information about the issue on this bag and in some of the materials. But I think we approach it more from a sort of art-making standpoint. It's just one of the languages that we use. So we're visual storytellers in many ways. And I think, so I guess I think of ourselves more as trying to tell a story in a different way. And that, there's some aspect of education in that.
If you two were to not agree on an approach, do you find that like stimulating creatively, or does that ever cause problems as a partnership?
No, I think it doesn't cause problems. I think it's key. I think disagreeing, which we do quite often, is the best way that our work grows. I think that's how we make great work together, is because we have, because we are father-daughter, I think we can argue pretty well with each other, and we can disagree really well with each other. And I think that is what helps. I mean, as he was talking about our educating and doing research, we research very different things. We are interested in different things, and then we bring those things to each other. So agreeing and disagreeing about what's important, I think, is what ends up giving us the best work.
Well, yeah, and we often disagree about what that research, what we should show or how we should show it, because I have a background as a scientist, and so I have to sort of look at the data, crunch the data on my own, and then try to make sense of it. That process for me is important, trying to understand what it is. And then because I have this, it can be both a benefit having a background as a scientist and a limiting factor, because I have a sort of practice of looking at data in a certain way, which I understand, but not necessarily everybody understands. So a lot of times what we do is we're pushing things back and forth about what's important, what's not important, how do we show this, how do we talk about it, often asking the question. I think we were actually on the way out here, we were talking about something like why do you want to show that, what's that about? And we give each other the opportunity to explain that, and we don't always agree, and we sometimes nix things. I think there's always the opportunity if somebody just says, no, I'm not, that doesn't work, then we'll sort of go with that.
Yeah, we allow veto power.
So for people who missed the Gardner experience on Saturday, there are 2 more opportunities to experience the free lunch project. The next one is Saturday, March 9th at the new Monticello Library. And I'm wondering if you will are there any tweaks to that project at all, or is it going to be the same thing that people experience at Gardner?
Well, it's a completely different location, with in a different part of town with different people. So it will certainly be a different experience, and we'll do some tweaking just on the space and maybe some things after we've reflected a little longer. But yeah, they're all different just because they're in a different location.
Sure.
And how long will your exhibit be here at the Central Gallery?
I believe it's up through, our final event is March 30th here at the Central Resource Branch. And then it's up at least through then, but it may be up longer. I'm not certain on that date.
I think it's up through the end of April, or April 21st, around there.
Great. And if you want more information, you can go to the website, jocolibrary.org, and check out our events calendar. You can always just search for exhibitions to see not only this wonderful exhibition, but all of our exhibitions that we have at all of our branches. And I want to thank you all for being here today. I thought that was a really great discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
The following is a true story. Once upon a time, there was a man named Roger. Poor Roger had just finished a terrific book, but Roger didn't know what to read next. He asked all his friends, "What should I read next?" Robot replied,
"Why not The Wild Robot?"
The 3 little birds pitched on his doorstep said,
"The Genius of Birds."
His friend in the Witness Protection Program suggested,
"The Mob and Me."
But none of these titles appealed to Roger. He didn't know what to do. But then Roger stumbled across the Johnson County Library website. "Staff picks!" he shouted with jubilation.
Roger that!
Find our staff picks at jocolibrary.org/we recommend. Welcome back. We have reached the We Recommend portion of the show, and this is a time where we recommend everything that the library has to offer. Sometimes that's services, sometimes that's a good book, sometimes that's music. Today, we're going to talk about everything that the library has to offer as far as music, and we have a physical collection. We have streaming services, we have live performances, we have a music blog, and here to talk about all of that are my guests, and I will let them introduce themselves, starting to my left.
Hello, this is Brian Vole. I am the local arts librarian here at Johnson County Library, and I work with a team of people to bring art to the library. So a lot of the artwork that you see in our branches, that is something that I work on with other members of our team. And I'm also involved with some local music projects as well, and I guess we'll get into that as we go forward.
Yes, we will. Let's introduce the guest to my right.
My name's Matt Fegan, and I am a collection development librarian here at Johnson County Library. I select all of the adult nonfiction and the music CDs, hence why I got the invite.
Which is your favorite to select? Or do you have a favorite?
Oh, geez. I do enjoy selecting the music. Every once in a while, I'll come across a band that I've never heard of or an album I've never heard of. I'll go, search online, sample their music, and so I'm discovering a lot of new music that I'm enjoying.
I will tell you, this is Dave Carson. I'm a huge music fan. I always have, and I always enjoyed live music. I love recorded music. I love researching bands, going to allmusic.com. Before that, it was the Ultimate Band List, but I just loved reading the backstory and really the story of the lifetime of a band and all the changes that they go through, and it just fascinates me.
It's funny that you say that. With the sales of CDs declining, I think that we are in an era where liner notes with CDs are becoming rarer and rarer, and at least people referring to liner notes to get information about a particular artist. So you go to social media or you go to an artist's website. But as MP3s and streaming music becomes more of the way that people consume music, there's less of that informational portion of who made this music, where was it recorded?
Well, I don't know. I think that's true for lesser known artists. I think a lot of artists you can really get, since it's the digital age, you can get, like I mentioned allmusic.com.
Yeah.
You can get their discography and get a musical review. You can get user reviews. You can get, the biography of the band. But there are the occasional band that it stumps you. And I think there is a hole that needs to be filled, especially more on the local level. I think it's a great time to mention what a great job the library does to kind of shed some light on some of those lesser-known artists, sometimes they're emerging artists, right here from our community.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have done in the past few years is we've got a blog, and it was initially called Listen Local. That name has now been changed to Local Music. And that local music blog is a way to feature Kansas City area songwriters and composers. And so every week there is a new artist that's featured with an interview. We've got links to their music. We've got videos, and these interviews try to cover what really goes into the music that they make. What's their songwriting process like? Where has it been recorded? Are they a solo artist? What have they been learning by making music and recording music and putting it out there? These are stories that we're not going to get otherwise, at least for our local music makers. So you're going to find that on our website, jocolibrary.org, and you want to go to Explore along the top of the page, and you'll click on that, and local music is where you want to go to read those features. And those are updated every week with a new artist. We're pushing 250 at this point.
250 artists? That's amazing. I didn't know there were. I didn't know there were 250 artists in the area.
Yes.
But, and it's all genres.
Yeah, we strive for maximum diversity, and that is really it's challenging, and it's not challenging in the sense that Kansas City has such a diverse array of artists and music, and we really have a thriving local music scene. And so we do really try to cover everything from rock and blues and folk to classical, experimental, ambient, strange music. We can always do a better job of that, but that's what we're striving for.
Well, and you know, you mentioned that we're really getting away from CDs and more digital files, and so we do have local artists on CD in our collection.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily we have a view of the future of what we would like to see with local artists and being able to have them represented in our catalog. You click, you listen, and all that. We're not there yet, but what we do have is your blog, and by bringing in the places where they've already posted music, like SoundCloud and YouTube and others, you can still get access to those local artists. I think that's super cool.
Right, and that is really connected to the library's mission with just the collection in general, like with music.
Well, let's talk about the collection.
Yeah, let's talk about the physical collection.
So the physical collection, Matt, how do you go about choosing what you choose? I know I would just choose everything that I like, and I know that you can't do that.
Right, yeah. No, we want to have a diverse collection. We want to represent lots of different ideas and lots of different artists in our collection. So I select music from everything from classical to punk rock to jazz to world music, which we have a world music section in our catalog. Basically, a lot of music from all around the world. But yeah, I just kind of go through and I see what's coming out. With music, we don't have as much of a look ahead like we do with the with published books, but I see what's coming out in the next few months or so and make sure I get those really popular ones that I know that people are going to be requesting. But also I want to represent lots of different styles of music in our collection as well.
Matt, I've got a question for you. Are you seeing any decline in compact discs, or particular artists not putting their music on CD but are being requested?
Yes, absolutely, and that's a great segue into make sure that you can. Folks can always put in a suggest for purchase. Just go to our website under using the library, suggest for purchase. If you have a CD that you want that we don't have in the collection, please put that in. Our CD still gets a lot of usage. Our circulation is continuing to hold steady. I don't think it's really dropping off yet, but we still get a lot of use in our CDs. When I'm going through and selecting, sometimes I like to listen to a little sample of, if it's particularly if it's artists I've never heard of. Absolutely, I like to listen to that, but you don't always have that luxury. So a lot of times you're just kind of going by, okay, is this something that I think that our patrons will want and request?
Wow, and so we've got the local music corner covered. We've got CDs in our collection. The one area that we should probably talk about that we're not experts on, but at least I've used the service, we have streaming audio, and that's super cool. We've got the Naxos Jazz catalog, and
I believe classical is jazz and classical.
Jazz and classical.
Yeah.
And so that's available through our website, and you can stream it. All you need is your library card and your PIN, and you're good to go.
You don't need to download any software for Naxos. It is completely free, and you have really an incredible selection of artists and music.
And I find that, sometimes that just kind of exploratory kind of listening session really opens the doors to all kinds of other artists. And then you start researching, you find out who played with who, what the context of the times were when the folks were recording. You learn all kinds of other artists that you might get turned on to, and I think it's fantastic. Of course, I'm biased, but I think the library is pretty doggone awesome that we have local music, all your favorites on CDs, and then streaming service as well. Any other? Let's end with this. How about one musical suggestion? It could be a live performer, or it could be a CD. What have you been listening to?
Oh, I am all over the map, and and that is not trying to weasel out of your question, but since I am connecting with so many different artists for the local music blog every week, there are different kinds of artists. Whatever artists that I am currently working on an interview with is the one that I'm most focused on right now. So the one that we've got, the interview that we've got coming up next on the local music blog is an interview with Una and Bob Walkenhorst. And it's a father-daughter team, and they are based in Kansas City. And
Old Rainmakers.
Yeah, Bob Walkenhorst was in the Rainmakers, and his daughter, Una Walkenhorst, she's in her early 20s. She is a phenomenal singer and songwriter. They collaborated on an album just in the past several months that's been getting a lot of attention. And so we have an interview with them coming up next that will be published hopefully by the end of the week, if not early next week. But yeah, that is something that I'm very excited about.
I have a couple things. I do have to give a shout out to my niece Bailey Larkin and her band Party Fridge. The name is total irony because it's some deep and really complex music. It's some good stuff. But Bailey is a featured artist on our local music blog.
Yes.
One thing that I've been doing on a personal level is going through this list. I'm not sure when it was put out, but by the Rolling Stone magazine, it had the 500 best albums, and I always want to see what they think. And so I've been working through a number of those albums. Albums that I haven't necessarily given a lot of attention to, and so one of those was the MGMT. What is it called? Ocular Spec.
Yeah, it's got ocular title. I don't remember exactly what that title.
What amazed me? This is like a 10-year-old album, but what amazed me is how many songs I had recognized from that album, and then the ones that I wasn't familiar with, the tracks I hadn't heard, they were great, and so I totally see why it was on that top 500 list. What about you, Matt?
So one thing that I'll bring up is that we have some stuff that are coming out in February and March. One of the big albums that I'm anticipating this March is Weezer's new album. They actually have 2 albums, and they're both called Weezer.
Yeah.
So, they like.
But they go by the color, right?
Right.
So there's the teal album, I heard.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Black album's coming out first, and we have that one on order right now. You can place your hold. Teal album is coming up later in March, and you folks will be able to put a hold on that one soon as well. I actually just talked with our catalogers and had them add that black album, teal album. Yeah, so hopefully there should be pretty easy to figure out which is which in the catalog.
So I from what I understand, the teal album is all covers.
Right, teal album is all covers, and the black album is all new.
And it all spawned from
the cover of Africa.
Yeah, but even before that, they started playing some, like, just challenging themselves, trying to play Radiohead, and these became viral on YouTube, and I think their fans started challenging them, and I think there was a fan that was like, "Hey, can you play Toto?" Oh my gosh, my friends. You want to just have a divide in the middle. It's like, how can you possibly desecrate Toto? It's like, why would you do that? So
I want to bounce off something that Matt said, and it reminded me that one of the really cool parts of our music collection that is easy to overlook is we get box sets, and not only just the music, but all of the liner notes and the extra stuff that comes with those box sets. And I'm thinking of the Beatles' White Album anniversary box set. That's huge. If you are interested and like that tactile part of music packaging, which is done really well, and all of the information that goes with a set like that, you can put those on hold and experience that part of music. So
for sure.
If there's a box set, and not just the Beatles, but we've got jazz and classical, all different kinds of
I can
music.
I'll totally chime in about the box sets. Earlier I was talking about kind of exploring and hearing a lot of different artists. Some of the box sets that we have of various artists, two come to mind by Rhino Disc. Big recommendation.
Right.
One is No Thanks, the 70s Punk Rebellion.
Yes.
Fantastic set. And the other one I love is kind of more new wave from the 80s, and it's Left of the Dial. Both of those, it's song after song of just greatness, in my opinion. I'm sure there's some country-loving Garth Brooks fan out there that's like, I don't think so.
Oh, we've got some Garth Brooks box sets as well.
We do. We have
we do have the anthology 3-part anthology.
3 just came. Yep.
There's like 6 discs or something, or 8 discs.
It is a book. In the catalog, it is cataloged as a book, and the CDs are added content. They're in sleeves inside the cover.
Wow!
But it's in our. You can find it under Bio Brooks. Okay. Also, for your box sets, to pop off that as well, coming March 1st, it will be the Best of Everything, the definitive career-spanning hits collection of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
What?
And they will also have 2 unreleased songs included in that as well. So,
really?
Place your holds now, folks.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. We could go on for hours, and in fact, I'm going to suggest that we do this again in the future if you're agreeable.
Let's do it.
Because we should definitely talk music, because it's our passion and it's your job. So
it's a passion as well for me.
Look for another music discussion in the future of our Did You Hear podcast. For now, we wish you happy listening.
For more episodes of Did You Hear, go to the Johnson County Library website, jocolibrary.org/didyouhear.